Well, welcome everybody to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Friday, December the 24th, 2021, and our calling number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you in the queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And we want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. Today is Christmas Eve. It's hard to believe. Mine and Michael's quarantine is over today, and we're preparing to go see Ryan and Gabby and Aria tomorrow, and we're excited about that. My dad is in the hospital still. They said that he has to stay there at the hospital until he's through his quarantine, which will be on Monday. And then they have already approved him to go to a rehab center. So hold the space for that. When we went to pick him up the other day, he couldn't even stand up. They had not gotten him up or exercised him or anything. And so laying around for a week, he had gotten very weak, and he couldn't even stand up or walk, so there was no way that we could bring him home. And so his quarantine is over on Monday, the 27th, and then they'll be moving him to a rehab and working with him to get his legs going again and getting him back up on his feet. So we hold the space that happens and that we can get him back here. And so now at this time, I will welcome Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody.
Oh, there you are.
I'm here. Welcome. Delighted you're with us, and I hope that your holy day season is truly that holy, that we each remember that this isn't about having a big party, but really it's about waking up to the truth of who we are and functioning truly as human beings. And, of course, our definition of human comes in a practical sense. That is, if you've ever held a newborn child and you've tapped into the essence of that newborn, you know what human life is. And what we're looking to do is to support the restoration of human life on Earth. If you look around at what's going on, the craziness that's happening in our culture, the rage, the fear, the outrage, from all sides of the spectrum, it's just so bizarre. It's like, have we forgotten who we are? And so remembering who we are, being accountable for functioning out of who we're not, when we're not, helps to open the space for something different. And space for all of those who are suffering through this COVID season. Difficult time, so many lives lost, so many people suffering, jobs lost, finances, homes lost, just so bizarre, so crazy. News that came on just as my alarm went off was 2,000 flights have been canceled, so more people being kept away from home, Christmas with the holy days and all. So just sending love in the direction of every mind, heart, and being on the planet, holding a space for that experience of self as we're designed to experience life, and that is as the active presence of love. And glad that you're with us. I'm going to head right into the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? We're coming up to completion of reading the book over the period of a year. We're getting coinciding pretty closely with the end of the year. We're on page 176, if you're following along with us. We're on chapter 24, looking at the forgiveness process and recognizing the false identification that so many people have with the mind of hostility and fear. And holding the space for each and every one of us to let loose of, to forgive hostility and fear. And that doesn't mean let hostility and fear off the hook. As the Greek-oriented culture would tell us, that forgiveness is about how whatever's going on in my life is your fault, and I'll forgive you. I'll let you off the hook for it. We're going to nix that idea. We're going to suggest you forget about ever forgiving anybody for anything, because it's not possible. And that you recognize that forgiveness is a specific technology, a tool for undoing the mind of hostility or fear and being restored to the truth of who we are as love, as human beings. And so we're talking to our character, Richard, about the forgiveness process, and where he started out, it's a story about not a true character, but each story in the book is true. It comes from actual interaction with real human beings in real circumstances where they've identified falsifying himself and every reality that he holds within him. Well, Richard's been walking through and confronting the realities in his mind that he had lots of people to blame for. Our basic bottom line thesis is that every reality produced by the human mind based in hostility or fear is false, can be removed, and can leave us standing in the experience of ourselves as love. If we refuse to be responsible, if we refuse to apply forgiveness, then we'll find all kinds of people to blame for what's going on inside of us. And so Richard has just been acknowledging that his relationships, especially with women, have been impacted by what he was not willing to deal with, what he wasn't willing to own. And so he's realizing that something different is possible. In fact, the last thing he said in our reading yesterday is everyone, and it's a mind shifter, and a mind shifter is one of the tools we teach. You take an idea that doesn't sound true to your mind, but is more positive than what you hold in your mind, and you start writing that idea and let your mind just flow with what's inside of it that is resonated by that idea, and start to clean up those thoughts. So the mind shifter that Richard came up with, and he came up with this on his own, is it's safe to love, and I'm going to do it. Everyone, including myself, supports me in having loving, connected relationships, especially with women, and particularly with my sister. He's been doing a worksheet around his sister. So, the basic bottom line is we are beings called love who live, move, and have our being in an energy field called love, which means that generated from within us continuously, 24/7, 365, is the presence of love. However, if we've got a different idea, if we want to do rage and guilt and fear and drama and trauma, we can overlay that love with something else and pretend that it's not there. The truth is, it's always there, it's never left, and it's always available if we choose to dump the hostility and fear-based thoughts that we bought into and that we've considered to be more important. So I go on to explain to Richard, in Aramaic, they would say you've just been born into a new kingdom, a new level of insight. It's exciting, but you have a whole genetic and life history of going in another direction. Your mind has a store of realities that is inertia bound. Your reality structure will tend to keep going in its direction rather than its new way as soon as it's back in the driver's seat. Your words indicate it's sneaking back already. And that is as it should be. What do you mean it should be? I don't want to go back to all that old way. I'm ready to move on. I like this new way of thinking and being, and I can't wait to tell everyone that I meet. Be aware, Richard, that not everyone's going to want to hear what you have to say. Recall when you first called and thought it would be a waste of time to get together? Remember that don't storm the gates warning? Just be aware that you have work to do. And the forgiveness process has just begun. There will be other layers of this and other old realities based on childhood experiences you just uncovered, and they're still going to have to come forward for healing. Those old realities will attempt to convince you that they're true, but only because it is what you've trained them to do. I'm committed. What do I do? Richard beamed. First, I suggest a commitment to 5 written worksheets a day for the next 40 days. As you've just observed, the worksheets put you in touch with your unconscious dynamics. They initiate healing. In the ancient scriptures, the unconscious was called the desert or the heart. 40 days in the desert is very powerful. So what I'm suggesting to Richard is that he use the worksheet process and spend a quantity of time in contact with his own unconscious mind. 40 days in the desert. Recall in the scriptures they said, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. Notice how the unconscious dynamic just uncovered has set up the issues in your life. It's pretty clear to me right now, but doesn't this put an end to it? I mean, we already did a worksheet on this issue. Shouldn't it be over? Richard asked hopefully. And we're not wanting to hold out false hope for Richard. It might require 77 times 70 worksheets, any given issue. In the scriptures, 7 is the number of completion. And the 0 added to that number is infinity. This means that you may do an infinite number of worksheets until you are complete with any given issue. The real work begins now. So what we're doing is we're offering some practical advice and recognizing, one of the major attributes of what we call the non-being mind. The non-being mind is the mind that generates and lives in a world of hostility or fear. The major attribute of it is inertia. If you remember the definition of inertia from physics class in high school, a body moving in a particular direction at a particular rate of speed will tend to continue to move in that direction at that rate of speed until it's acted upon by an outside force. Each and every reality construct of the mind based in hostility or fear, sooner or later must be faced and forgiven. Elsewise, if it's triggered into activity, it will tend to take over and lead us back into the old ways of thinking. And, tying it together with the fact that we're completing this Christmas Eve, that the whole idea of Christmas is, that word Christ is not the name of a man, but is actually the name of an office. One who held the space of an awakened mind was said to be living in the mind of Christ, not a religious idea, but that mind of love was the governing energy for that individual. And what we're looking to do with this forgiveness process is get to the point where everything based in hostility or fear is faced, forgiven. Everything in the inertia-bound mind that would tend to draw us back into the sphere of hostility and fear is going to have to be dealt with. And as one does that, as one weakens that mind, then literally that mind of love is birthed in the individual and comes forward, out of an immaculate conception. There are meanings to all of those words that are very profound in terms of this process when you realize it. And that when your mind can stand in front of any given situation, and instead of being tainted by something from the past, you look at this worksheet that this character Richard has just done on his sister, every time he interacted with women, perception of women was tainted by this pain that he carried and his resentment at his sister for having had such an easy life, and he having had such a difficult life. And so his perception was always compromised by that unresolved hostility or fear when it came to relationships, especially with women. So he has a chance, as he cleans his mind of that, to have literally have an untainted view of women in his life, rather than defaulting back to these old painful realities that he's made all about women, that he's projected into his brain's image of women. And so when you collapse the mind's capacity for some form of hostility or fear, and you allow the mind to be restored to the active presence of love, everything changes. You know, when you recognize that that's what the season is really about, and there are millions of minds looking in that direction, perhaps unconsciously not really knowing what it's about, but turning their minds to the space of love, turning their minds to living as human beings, then there is an energy created that each of us can take advantage of. This particular time of year, with all of the energy focused on and moving in the direction of awakening, moving in the direction of goodwill, there's an inertia movement toward healing. And we can, if we're conscious, take advantage of that and allow that energy to support us in the healing process. And as we clean out, as we finish out this year, our objective would be to recognize that the new year is an opportunity to make new commitments to do one's own work, and then to be supported and to be of support to others who also want to move in the direction of doing the work of healing. And the whole bottom line, simple objective is to be restored to the presence of active love, your true nature. It's mind-boggling when you think and when you look at all the hostility and fear, and then just go back. Go back to the moment where you held a newborn and recognize that every raging, hateful, prejudiced, vicious, politically rageful mind, all the garbage that's going on, all the trash that's being talked in our world, go back to the moment of birth of each of those as children. And what did we have? They had to be taught to hate. They had to be taught to live in fear. They had to be taught the prejudices they have. They don't come with the package. They may be structured into carbon-based memory, so there's kind of a propensity toward those things, because those things, generally speaking, have been going on for many generations in people's bloodline. So it's kind of easy to fall into those patterns. But go back to the moment of that child coming into the world. How many times does a child have to be beaten in order to come back with hate and rage and fear? And recognize it's not our natural way. It's not what we're made of, and it's not what we're made for. And the objective of our work together is to change that dynamic and to create support for people really, truly recognizing who they are. And at this particular time of year, what this season is really about is bringing forward that mind of love in each and every one of us. Whether it's in our relationships, whether it's in our business world, our business interactions, whatever world it's in. And so we're honored and delighted that you're here to lend your ears to this conversation, to be part of it. And we would love to hear from you. We would love to hear your voice. And if there's some way we can support you, if there are questions about anything that we've shared, perhaps sharing some of your experience of using the tools. Maybe there's been a particularly important piece of work that you've done that you'd be willing to share with us, that might inspire others, that might, serve as an example for others to see on a practical level that no matter what form of hostility, fear, rage, guilt, grief, separation, drama, trauma, hatred, and vengeance is happening, that energy can be replaced by active present love. And the whole idea of starting this community, the whole idea of this 10-year workshop that's been going, this 10-year conversation on Mindshifters Radio has been to extend that to the world as far and as wide as we can possibly do it. There are many tools on our website. I think we're up over 20,000 pages now. You're welcome to go to the website, whyagain.org, and access all of the tools that we've got. You can go to your app store on your phone and download the Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness app. If you just type that into your app store, and you'll find that, in the app, you've got the worksheet process you can do right there live. You can read the book from the app. You can listen to the Wellness to Stillness meditation. You can access the commitments, videos, audios, ask questions. We're doing everything we can possibly do to facilitate this process being easy and accessible to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. And so we're glad that you're here with your listening ears. And Miss Jeanie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
It is all quiet on both fronts. And I think we had a conversation going yesterday that we were going to continue, didn't we? I'm not sure if we completed that or not with Dusty.
Well, Dusty's out there and pushes one, and let's go for it. There was a possibility there might be some more conversation to be had. There was a question coming up right at the end. So, Dusty, if you're out there,
okay,
push one and let's have a conversation.
904.
There he is. Hey, young man.
Yes. Hey, aloha, everybody. And
aloha.
It's good to hear your collective voices today.
It's good to have them
we were
be
talking,
able to be heard.
What's that? Yeah. And since I've got this interim phone here, I can actually be heard, and that's I don't have to have people grumbling at me because they think I'm mumbling, which perhaps sometimes I do, but hey, I think somewhere along the line we were talking about actually I'm caught in between two things here, because there was a lady, I think yesterday, the day before maybe, there was somebody that was talking about that they were had some trouble and hung on some things. And I just heard you say, how many times must a child be beat before they hate? Something like that.
Yeah.
Out of the book. And I just wanted to share an experience because that happened to me. And, maybe...
Go for it.
Maybe by telling it, you might hear something that objectively that I never quite got. But when I was about 5, my mother we had moved to Idaho from Hollywood, and she was running this part of this hospital, and married a guy that, he looked like a Greek Adonis. He was really something. And he was incredibly strong. He was big also. But while my mother was in the hospital giving birth to my little sister, it was the first time I was with this fellow alone, and I knew there was something wrong with him the first time I saw him as a little kid, but I didn't know what. I didn't think that deep. But I'm sitting in this one room, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of trying to bring this up in the way it really happened, and I know I'm stumbling a little bit here word-wise.
So we're here holding the space.
So I'm sitting.
Take your time.
Thank you. I was sitting there. I'm playing with these little cars or something, and all of a sudden I hear this noise, this voice. I turn around, and standing right next to me, look, it was like straight up from where I was, way up there. I looked up, and it was this Claude guy who was supposed to be a stepdad. He wasn't, but they wanted to pretend that he was for the community. I could see him. His face was angry looking, and his arms were flailing, and there was words coming out, and it was sort of, I was detached from it, or it was a little bit like a dream, because I'm looking up and I'm seeing this going on, and he's got a little dark energy around him, and I went, oh, this guy wants to hurt me. And I had never experienced that kind of overt hostility, and I couldn't understand. I mean, why the heck would he want to hurt me? He doesn't even know me. He doesn't even know what I am, or anything. And so he started smacking me around hard because
are you breathing?
Something. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I just came through something here a little while ago that was I'm not really I'm not very well oxygenated here, but thank you for the breathing. So, anyways, he drugged me into the bathroom and accused me of doing something. I think it was loosening nuts on the back of the tub or something really stupid that I had nothing to do with. Didn't even know what he was talking about. And he said, "Why did you do that?" And he started beating on me. Now, I was tough. Even at 5, I was kind of a tough little guy, and but it hurt. He was strong. He's in the 3 strongest men I've ever known. He was one, and a big callous hands, and he's smacking me really hard. Mostly in the rear end, but not always. It was a little bit all over. And he just kept doing it and accused me, "Why did you do this? Why did you do this? Well, you did this. You did this." I says, "No, I don't even know what you're talking about. Well, you did this. You did this." And he, and to make a long story short, the pain got so bad that I thought I had to admit that I had done this. Maybe he'll stop, for God's sakes. So I said, "Okay, I did it." And he went, "Oh, yeah, now you're lying. You were lying." And then he started in heavier that way. And it was very sadistic because I got beat for doing it, or I got beat for not doing it and lying, or whatever. I mean, I couldn't win.
Right.
And I went back and forth after a while out of survival, just saying one thing or another. Yeah, I did it. I didn't do it. I just, but it didn't make any difference. He just went until his rage, his pocket of rage, had temporarily run out. And and that was my first introduction to this fellow. But you know what? And this is where I'm going with this, rather than this sad-ass story, excuse my language, but it was that, and I'm relating this back to something I heard this woman say in your show, but I've known this, since that time. I could, and that went on for like over a decade, and that
the beating
something like and
wow.
but I never
Crazy.
hated him. I think for two reasons. One is I really don't have hate in me. I don't know. Sometimes I look for it. I go, where am I hiding my hate? And I have, disdain for malevolent activities, but
right.
I don't really hate. I don't have it. I just don't have it.
Good for you.
What saved me in terms of really getting it is when he first started, and I looked at this guy and I went, oh, he's pathetic. That was where I took all that stuff. I understood that this fellow there was something wrong with him, and he was pathetic. And because he was pathetic, I couldn't hate him anyway. And
right.
I've never heard anybody really bring up the pathetic thing, but that hit me. And kids got spanked, now and then because they did something or didn't do something. I never got spanked once by this fellow. I just got beat. But the word pathetic was what got me out of that. I mean, I don't know whether it brought up. I don't know if it brought up compassion or not, but
that's what I was coming with. That's what was coming to me, was that you had a level of compassion in seeing his infirmity that really saved you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Because if you hadn't been able to see his infirmity, it certainly could have led you down the same type of dark road that he was on. So that's pretty profound that you had that level of awareness at that tender age. That's powerful.
Thank you. Yeah. I guess it was, and that was. I think it was. I'm just going to I don't have to speculate. It was kind of a carryover from a continuum of lives, and I know you don't talk about that much in the show, but that has played out big in my life. But yeah, and so that went on, and so I eventually got away from that jailer. When I got out of high school, I graduated. Of course, he kind of. And I'll tell you what ended the beings was just in case, I don't know, it might do somebody some good if they hear it or not. I don't know. I mean, maybe it'll do me some good to say it. But when I was 16, he hadn't really, I was getting big at 16, I mean, bigger. I mean, I was almost 5 foot. But, I mean, I was older. And, for some reason, he started in on me again for something. And my mother, who never got in the way, she couldn't believe he was doing that still. And she got in the way. And I remember that in his rage, I mean, it's only been recently. In fact, I think listening to your program helped bring this word up for me, rage. Because it wasn't just, he was angry or brutal or something. He was a rageaholic. And
right.
He pushed her so hard. Now, my mom had rheumatoid arthritis, was heavy, could just, all she could do was walk well, and he threw her. And she would have gone down really hard, but she hit a door after about 4 or 5 feet, and that stopped it. But it hurt her, and so something in me, and but anyways, when he did that, this thing went in my mind, and I mean, just one of these things that happens once in a while in this life. I had a very clear resolution. I thought to myself, as codependent as it may sound, well, he can do that to me, but he can't do that to her. Meaning right. Kind of at that stage that, yeah, I could take it. Yeah, I knew, how to roll with the punches and blah, blah, blah. But she didn't. and she was old and infirm, and she was already in agony, and I thought, oh, well, he can't do that to her. I had this thought, and it was so clear, and I went, well, if he ever does that to her again, I'm going to kill him. Now, he's a big guy, and I'm a little guy, but in my mind, I thought I can always sneak up on him with a baseball bat and do him in, or something. And not that I would
what happens
really
to your
do
breath
that.
as you say that?
Oh, I'm just...
What happens to your breath as you say that?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I jammed up. Yes, it did, my brother. It jammed up.
Yeah. So I want you to soften as you hold that thought, to soften your body, to soften your breath, and let it move through you. Let your breath move through you and open the residuals of that energy. That's it's a pretty intense load to carry around.
Oh, thank you. Okay, yeah. So, but this resolution in me was just a line in the sand. And I mean, it was like a line that would not be crossed. And I made it I just took a stand. I had never, even in my thoughts, taken a stand with this guy, because it would never do me any good anyway. But right then, at that age, at that time, I did. I decided I would do him in if he ever did that to my mom again. And you know what? He never laid a hand on me again after that. It went into his subconscious too. I know it did, because he just stopped.
No.
He never. I mean, he still said awful things, but he never laid a hand on me.
Right.
But the pathetic. We're back, and we're that. But what's your thought on that? Me drawing that line. Would you have any feeling about that? It was mental. It was just mental.
The main thing I would invite you to do is to recognize any residual. It sounds like it was probably something that came out of a space of pain and identification with her pain, and that the reason I kept inviting you to look at what was happening with your breath is that if you're carrying any residual of that in your body, that's a disintegrated or a dangerous energy to carry in tissue. And if you can notice a part of you that as you're speaking about it, your breath cuts off, then you want to restore that part of you. If you can see that, well, maybe you're breathing up in your chest, or maybe you're breathing down in your belly, but your breath isn't coming up into your chest, and you can restore the breath, then you can let go of that, the intensity of that energy held in tissue, and it'll take your healing process to another level. Especially something that, if it's there, that you've carried for so many decades.
Right, and that's right. And I'm also dealing with with something going on in my stomach and stuff, and it's funny that I would call now, because I'm having a little hard time getting all my diaphragm stuff working anyway. But yes, I was doing that, and thank you. So
very likely.
Also, I have never in my life plotted to kill somebody or even considered it. I mean, even the Army couldn't get me to kill anybody. Ultimately, they couldn't. And right now, talking to you and actually saying this out loud, I realized, wow, I really kind of thought, made up my mind I was going to do that if it happened again. And I went, whoa, I can't kill anybody. You know what I mean? I can't. It's not. I don't want that karma or whatever it is. But I made that. I had to. That's how desperate the situation was. And he was pathetic, and as he got older, he had one good period for about 8 years in the 80s, early 90s, the 90s, and he was okay to be around, and then he went back to his old ways, and did a bunch of, I don't know, he just turned out to be poor guy was so damaged. Oh God,
yeah.
he was so damaged, and I can kind of see where it came from in his family line, and I feel sorry for him. Right now, I'm feeling sorry for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
so
anyways, I don't even know how he got on. What's that? Go ahead.
Well, my invitation would be to recognize that energy, and as you tap into and open up feeling sorry for him, where do you feel that in your tissue structure? Just pay attention to where that sensation is.
You know, I can tell you where, well, right now I'm a little thrown off because right now my stomach hurts from something.
Okay.
I must have I drank a bunch of coffee earlier and it didn't do me any good. Yeah, anyway, but this was prompted a little bit because you spent quite a bit of time on the phone talking to some woman who you knew, and I mean, even if I remember the name, it's not my place to mention it, but what struck me was that
what she was going through.
Yeah, and she kept going back in, and she'd gone back into that, in and out of that energy, even with the tools that have been gotten from you. And I've seen that before, where people get trapped, and and they go back and forth, and you know, there's a tendency among people to think, well, if I do it one more time, it'll be different, and it's usually not. And so, anyways, recently I've been thinking about this guy, and about a week ago or so, I had a meditation, and as I was finishing up, I could feel his energy or something, you know, that whole thing come up for me, and I realized I needed to love this guy, and I wrote down in my journal something about him, and now my little
sister.
Invitation. Yeah.
Before you move to the conversation about your sister, my invitation to you would be that you go to the website and print off the worksheet if you don't have any copies of the worksheet, or go to the app and take this whole circumstance that you've spoken about. I don't think it's a coincidence that there's a disturbance in your stomach, and a week ago you opened looking at some of the dynamics from that relationship, and maybe it's just time for your body to process out that old trauma around this man. And your stomach may not be reacting to coffee; it may be reacting to your uncovering this whole energetic pattern that's been carried in your body for so long. And I'd invite you. I know you do a lot of breath practice work, that you do some of your breath practice work and focus while you're thinking about this whole circumstance and what went down and what happened, and your intensity of the action you were willing to take, to breathe into that, and perhaps it'll be the resolution of that trauma that's going on in your stomach. Because the body is the mind. You know, where we hold energy. People think about the mind as being in the brain, but in fact, it's every cell in the structure that stores information, and where we store disintegrative energy. You know, if we stay away from it and we avoid it and we deny it and we suppress it and we keep it, hidden, there's not a lot of disturbance that happens until it turns into degeneration, and then the tissue actually starts to degenerate. And when I allow myself to go back with awareness and recognize where that is, the breath is one of the big keys to doing it. It may be time for your body to let go of that energy that was stored from all those years of resentment.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, there's a bit of that. I will say the stomach thing started before I even called in, but I have noticed recently, in the last few weeks maybe, that my initial, I've really worked through, the most of the initial, or maybe hopefully all of the initial trauma or whatever from this person, but what I'm finding out, and it's probably not just me that does this, but that even though I work out the main thing, although I am going to go back and look at that line in the sand and do a worksheet kind of thing on it, and
definitely would do
that. Is that there are secondary and tertiary, et cetera, echoes from things like this.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what's been coming up for me. The echoes. Oh, okay. Yeah, but how did that change your behavior, or why, or da 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 da? Anyways, I'm working on the echoes of that, and some of the echoes of a really powerful negative source are pretty strong echoes. Some of them.
Yes.
And the thing about the echoes, or the little fallout, is that they have a tendency, at least in me, to be more unconscious,
right,
and conscious, because oh yeah, we already cleaned that up. So what's the problem? Well, the problem was that caused you to do this, and that caused you to do that, and then that, and that's the bum. So it all goes back to that anyway.
Well, as we're seeing in this conversation we've been having with the character Richard, there's a principle called diffusion. And
yes.
If you look at, this worksheet that Richard's just done, it's been on his sister, and he's seeing how his resentment toward his sister has diffused into his relationships with women.
Right.
And if there's been some diffusion of, has there ever been any repercussion in your relationships with men, with this man doing what he's done? Has there ever been any overprotectiveness with women that has impacted your relationships? There can be many angles that the mind plays those things out in, and as you apply the forgiveness process, you literally remove those things. And when you talk about, well, I was doing some work around this man a week ago, it sounds like you've really opened a major, life issue here, and it doesn't surprise me that your tissue structure's reflecting some disturbance and that your mind is focusing on and thinking about those things, because, the stomach is a part of the mind. And if that's where things, oftentimes things stored in the gut can create a lot of trauma if we don't ever deal with them. And that's why I'm suggesting you do some breath work there, and specifically focusing literally where the disturbance is in your body, and just see what comes up, see what moves. It may be total resolution of this issue.
Yes, thank you. That's you're right on that one, and I appreciate it, because I do attempt to live from love. I do live from love for the most part, but these kind of things, it's kind of scary to find a shadowy, you're calling it diffusion. I'd have to say, for me, it's more of it's like if you make a musical note and there's overtones or there's different tones off that tone, but these echoes are very subtle and devious because they become part of the fabric of me a little bit. And yes, it's definitely made a difference in the way I relate to men and women, that's for sure. I have always, however, just kind of put this on a bright note because I know I sucked up a lot of the time for this program. My little sister, he never laid a hand on her, thank God. He never did. And so I've gone around this life being the big brother to any and all women and children. I mean, it's just like, okay, I'll stand right in the breach. I'll go down swinging, but I'm not going to let so-and-so be hurt. And I've done that I don't think I've overdone that so far. Not in action. I've had to do it. I have done it. But I love my sister, and my Christmas is about my sister. And I mean, Richard's got a problem with his. Mine saved me because in this dysfunctional family where everybody, they were crazy. My mom and my dad, they were just absolutely batshit. And but she was a sweet, like you talked about the newborn. She kept that glow in her, and her sweetness saved me when I went out because my mom did some stuff that wasn't very good either. I mean, really bad earlier on. And my sister saved me because I always thought of women as my sister. Any woman anywhere is my sister, whether she knows it or not. And I'm a big brother, whether I think of it that way or not. And I've always been very protective. And, I've studied keto and a bunch of those other things. And sometimes I've gone into a situation, maybe with a couple gals that were in dire situations, for instance, and just took a shot and tried to diffuse the situation and make it okay. And it always turned out good. I don't know if I overdo that or not, but I have noticed that diffusion thing has tainted my relationship a little bit with some guys, and so I guess I really should do a worksheet breathing thing right through that. There are other reasons why I would have problems, but the fact that I'm even talking about this now, and that this conversation was
powerful.
This woman you had brought it up. So I didn't need to tell anybody that story.
I hear you.
I
hear you. I'm glad you were on the show to hear her and have this open up. It's like, these are the types of things that people generally keep, these don't matter. I don't have to look at it. I don't have to deal with it. And the fact is, if I can bring it to conscious awareness in the presence of active love, I can process out the disturbing energies that I don't need to carry around anymore for me. I don't need to carry around anymore for the planet. There's a great line in the Course in Miracles that says, millions yet unborn will benefit from the work you do. What you open, what you clean up in your mind, in your body, literally opens an energy window for every other person on the planet who has the same issue to, take one step closer to being able to open and move through it rather than stay stuck in it their whole lives.
Yeah, I got goosebumps on that when you said that about the whole planet and that sort of thing. because I walk around with kind of a planetary awareness. I can't even. I mean, I just do it, and it's not that I really even.
It's what we're designed for. That's probably exactly what allowed you to have the compassion for him as a 5-year-old. That's one of the things that you had earned in your life, was the ability to hold that compassion and that vision for something that most people collapse and lose very early in their lives. So that's powerful that you've been able to keep that open and to keep moving in that way. When I think back, for those who aren't aware of it, Dusty and I have a history that goes back about close to 42, 43 years. And I was saying to Jeanie yesterday, Dusty, that over on Ivy Road, when I lived, rented a room in the house with Patrick McGann, and that you were around, and just that your energy, even though we never spent a lot of time together, that after we each moved on from there, I mean, literally for 4 decades, whenever I would talk to Patrick, I'd always ask, where's Dusty? I've lost Dusty. I don't know where he is. I mean, for decades, Patrick and I had that conversation, and so when he made contact with you again, it's like, oh, this is so awesome, and I think that's one of the reasons, because I identify with you in that, and it always has been a contact point between you and I. For me.
Yes. Well, yes, and that's beautiful. I appreciate that. I really feel that, and yes, that was a good time, and I have often wondered where you and other people went too. I mean, some of the beings in my life that have come through that felt special to me, especially, I went, oh, well, where's that light now? And
I hear you.
And once in a while it happens, and it's, I have to say, it's been a gift, a big gift, to have a relationship at some level with Michael, with you, and even Andy up or wherever he is, down in was it Ecuador,
South America, right? Yeah.
And so I appreciate that, and I know we're at the end of the show, so I'm going to say a mahalo for this. I didn't expect this to come up today, but oh boy.
Well, I'm glad it did, and opened what it's opened, and holding the space for the deepest levels of healing.
Yes, thank you, and the healing for me, I'm hoping will give me a more clear and stronger impetus to do the right thing for the wholeness of the plant. I just can't think of just even humans. Yeah, it's all like we talked about yesterday. It was all 3 million of the species, and the soul of the mother, the Rupa Dikudsha or whatever. That's, to me, that's how I look at it, is the planet. It's the planet as a whole, in its sense. And
heading for critical mass is what this work is about. So we're glad you're part of it.
Okay, well, mahalo and Meli Kalekamakas, everybody. Are you going to be on Christmas or not?
Oh, yeah, we do this every day, so we'll be here.
Well, Monday through Friday.
Rock and roll.
So we'll be back on Monday.
Christmas Day is Saturday.
Oh, that's right. It's Friday.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, today's Friday. Yeah.
Okay, well.
And I'm going to call you right after the show if you're available.
Okay, we'll do.
All right, everybody. Have the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings, Artie. Bye-bye.